So we are done with the discussion for the accounting equation, double entry system, normal balance, and types of transactions. So this time, let's have a comprehensive illustration. We will apply everything that we have discussed about this topic. So let's proceed with the comprehensive illustration. Okay, so this is the transaction. This is a problem, sample problem, a comprehensive illustration. So this is a business owned by Dr. Jonathan Alegre. So Dr. Jonathan Alegre opened a medical clinic in Capulong, Davao del Norte. So therefore, diba? So the business is Capulong, then the medical clinic in Capulong. Okay, so or a clinic owned by Dr. Jonathan Alegre. So the following are completed transactions for the month of September. So these are the transactions of the clinic of Capulong, the clinic of Dr. Alegre for the month of September. So these are the transactions for the month of September. So take note that, diba, applying the accounting entity assumption, so we are on the perspective of the business entity. We are on the perspective of the medical clinic, not of Dr. Jonathan Alegre. Diba? Dapat separate ang owner to the business entity. So, kita ang business entity. We are the business entity here. So, we account the transaction as the business entity or the medical clinic owned by Dr. Jonathan Alegre. Okay, so again, we are on the point of view of the medical clinic. So, how do we account these transactions? Transactions for the medical clinic. So, we have given chart of accounts. So, when you say chart of accounts, these are the accounts to be used by the medical clinic in accounting the transaction. So, normally, given sa mga problems, so, limited lang ta. So, transactions or the accounts to be used, dapat naasa yung imong chart of accounts. So, for this problem, we have given ang chart of accounts, you have assets account. This is the account title, you have the account number. So, you have pila ka assets, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 5 asset accounts, you have 2 liability accounts, and we have owner's equity, we have the capital account, we have the withdrawals account. Kapangalan kang Dr. Alegre because he is the owner. Because si Dr. Alegre ang mo invest sa medical clinic at the same time mo withdraw sa medical clinic. So, you have the income account, medical fees lang atong income account dire. So, this is related lang yun sa iyang practice. Then, the expenses to be incurred or for the medical clinic is money. Salaries expense, nasa assistant siguro. You have taxes and licenses, you have utilities. Okay, so let's proceed with the illustration. So on September 1, so before we proceed with the transaction, so let's read first the requirement. So the requirement here is for each transaction, indicate a specific account to be debited and credited using the given chart of accounts. Indicate whether the asset, liabilities, or owner's equity increase, decrease, or did not change or no effect by placing the appropriate letter in the appropriate column. So if the increase, let's put letter I, decrease, D, or no effect, not or did not change, you have N. Then identify what type of transaction. So, diba? We have 4 types of transactions. You have the source of asset, you have the use of asset, you have the exchange of asset, and exchange of claims. So, let's start. So, first, we need to identify, based on the transaction, what account should be debited or what account should be credited based on the chart of accounts. Then effects on your asset. So put I if increase, D if decrease, then N if no effect or no change. So type of transaction. So pwede ra katong abbreviation niya. Let's start September 1. So what happened on September 1? So Dr. Alegre invested cash amounting to 950,000 in a clinic furniture worth 250,000. So again, we are on the perspective of the clinic. We are the medical clinic, not Dr. Alegre. So kita ang clinic, si Dr. Alegre naghatag, nag-invest daw og cash sa ato amounting 950,000 plus nag-invest pod siya og clinic furniture. So therefore, in that transaction, we need to identify unsa atong nadawat as kita si medical clinic, unsa atong na unsa atong i-credit, unsa atong gihatag. Okay. So account debited, unsa atong ginadawat sa gi-invest ni Dr. Alegre. Siyempre, di ba, we are the medical clinic. So nag-invest sa Dr. Alegre sa ato, unsa iyang gi-invest? First, you have cash. Di ba? So nakadawat ta og cash, pili amount sa cash, that's 950,000. Aside from the cash, sa pa atong line na dawat, that's clinic furniture. So tanaw nato, di ba, cash on hand itong gamiton ani because nasa chart of accounts. Aside sa cash, nakadawat pud ta og clinic furniture. So nabay clinic furniture dire. Okay, so that is furniture and fixtures, di ba? Because naka-furniture man siya. So that's, aside from the cash, debit pud ta dugang og furniture. Ako na lang sang i-abbreviate guys ha. Like total, that is 250,000. Okay. Unsa atong i-credit if this is the transaction? So nag-invest si Dr. Alegre sa ato, okay, medical clinic. So unsa atong i-credit? So we credit the capital account because di ba capital man to, that is capital ang i-invest ni Dr. Alegre. So si Dr. Alegre na si capital ka medical clinic. So Dr. Alegre capital. So that is pili total ani 950 plus 250. So that's 950 plus 250. That's 1,200,000. 1.2 M. So take note guys that your debits has two accounts, diba? Have two accounts. You have cash on hand and furniture and fixtures, diba? Based on the double entry system, at least one or more account to be debited or at least one or more account to be credited. So in this transaction, we debited two accounts but we only credited one account. But take note, equal gyapon ang amounts because 950 plus 250, the total debits is 1.2 and the total credit is 1.2. Okay. So, di ba? So, next, effects to your asset. Based on this transaction, unsa effect sa asset? Increase, decrease. Diba? It will increase. Why increase? Because diba, we debit cash, it's an asset account. We debit furniture and fixtures, it's an asset account gihapon. Normal balance of asset is debit. Every time we debit an asset account, it will increase the total asset account. Therefore, we debit a cash on hand, we debit a furniture and fixtures under asset. So the total effect on your asset, it will increase by how much? 1.2 million. Diba? 1.2 million. How about liabilities? Na may effect sa liabilities? The answer is no. No effect. Okay, the answer is no effect. Center. Okay, the answer is no effect. Why? Because, di ba, ang imong gidebit nga account, these are all assets. And you credited an owner's equity account. Therefore, wala liability. Wala naapektuhan ang liability. How about owner's equity account? What happened to your owner's equity account? Diba, we credit capital account. The normal balance of capital or investment account is credit. Therefore, what is the effect of your owner's equity? So, it will increase. Okay. Still, the equation is balanced. Diba? Increase, how much increase in owner's equity? That's 1.2 million. So your asset increases to 1.2 million, increase by 1.2 million. No effect on liability. At the same time, there's an increase of 1.2 million for your owner's equity. Still, the equation is balanced. Type of transaction, di ba? What type of transaction, di ba? So the affected account is ni-increase ang asset at the same time ni-increase ang owner's equity. So what type of transaction is that? Di ba? It's a source of asset transaction. But based on the discussion, diba? So this is the effect is under the source of asset type of transaction. So there's an increase in asset, increase in owner's equity. So this is source of asset transaction, type of transaction. So let's proceed with the second, September 2 transaction. Both medical, si medical clinic nagpalit daw og medical equipment on account. Take note, on account. Sir, what do you mean by on account? Giutang, di ba? giutang from Manila Medical Equipment Supply Company amounting to 750,000, paying 200,000 and issued a note for the balance. So, what happened to the transaction? Medical clinic bought a medical equipment on account from Manila Medical. So, giutang from Manila Equipment Supply amounting, the total amount of the equipment is 750,000. But, diba, nag-down payment siya og 200,000. Nag-down payment ta og 200,000 tapos nag-issue ta og note for the balance. So giutang nato, ang remaining utang na lang nato is only ilan ni 550,000. Question, what is the debit unsa atong nadawat sa transaction sa pagpangutang? Di ba? Unsa atong giutang? Medical equipment. Therefore, atong na-receive sa transaction, the debit nato sa transaction is the medical equipment. So, nabay medical equipment. Okay, so let's refer to the chart of accounts para di ta malibog, di ba? Unsa atong i-debit or credit nga account. Given naman siya, so pangitawon na lang nato dire. So, we have medical equipment. So, based on the transaction, we receive medical equipment. Debit pilay total, that is tag 750,000 ang total worth sa medical equipment. But unsa atong gihatag? Di ba sa transaction? Unsa atong gi-credit sa transaction? Nag-credit ta, nag-down payment tag cash pila. That is 200,000. Aside sa cash, naghatag ta og note. Kumbaga giutang nato, note. Therefore, tan-aw nato sa T account na atay notes payable, di ba? So that is nagbayad ta at the same time nagkautang ta. Pero nag-issue tag promissory, so that is notes payable. That is pilay balance, that is 550,000. Okay, so in this case, we have one account, debit account, and we have two credit accounts. But the question, balance paghapon imong total debits and credit? Yes, balance. Nalay duha ka account sa credit. Okay, asset. Nabay effect sa asset based on the transaction. Nabay asset account. Medical equipment, yes, asset account. Cash, asset account. Notes payable, liability account. Therefore, nabay effect sa asset account? Yes, naa. Increase, decrease. So, this is na-increase, pilay increase. Because with debit and asset account, it will increase the total balance of 750,000. But aside from the increase, naatay gi-credit nga asset account. Diba? So, na-increase, naapoy decrease, pilay decrease. That is 200,000. So, na-decrease 200,000. Therefore, the total net effect, you have increase of pilay increase lang yun. So, if your total asset, so that is increase of 750 minus 200, that is 550,000. Okay, that is the total effect on your asset. There's an increase of 750 because the normal balance of medical equipment or asset is debit. So, ni-increase 750 and napo kay gi-credit nga cash, di ba? So, because the normal balance of cash is debit, gi-credit man nato, so it will be deducted. So, ni-decrease ang balance sa asset 200,000. Therefore, the net effect is increase 550,000. How about the liabilities? Na ba effect sa liabilities? Yes, na, because we use a liability account, notes payable. So, what is the effect on your liability account? Increase, decrease? Okay, the answer is increase. Increase by 550,000. Again, the normal balance of liability is credit. Therefore, we credit a liability account, notes payable 550,000. The effect on your asset, it will increase by 550,000. Okay, how about owner's equity? No effect. Why? Because there's no owner's equity account in the transaction. Diba? In the debit and credit. So, therefore, no effect. So, balance bang equation? Yes, balance because sa imong asset na total net increase nga 550, ni-increase at the same time sa imong liability na po increase nga 550. Still balance. Question, what type of transaction? Actually, pwede sa duha ka transaction, type of transaction dire. First is you have exchange of asset because diba exchange of asset, you debit an asset, ni-increase ang asset at the same time ni-decrease ang asset. So in this case, ni-increase ang asset at the same time ni-decrease ang asset. So pwede siya exchange of asset at the same time ni-increase pod ang asset, ni-increase pod ang liability. Okay, pwede pod siya source of asset. But if we try to look at the net effect, di ba, the net effect here sa atong asset, na-increase sa asset, na-increase sa liability. Therefore, the net effect, if we try to look at the net effect, so naka-source of asset siya. Di ba? There's an increase in asset, at the same time, there's an increase in liability. But pwede po sa exchange of asset because naay duha ka asset involved. Nag-debit kang medical equipment, the same time nag-debit ka og cash. Although di na sa same amount. Okay, next transaction, both medical equipment for cash. So nagpalit do tag medical equipment, di cash na to. Di ba? So unsa atong nadawat sa transaction, nagpalit tag medical equipment. So that is medical equipment. Debit medical equipment, pilay worth, that is 100,000. Unsa ganitong gibayad? Giutang ba nato ni wala, di ba? Cash man siya, medical supplies. Sorry. This is supplies. This is not an equipment, therefore dili sa medical equipment di ay. So we try to look at the chart of accounts, so we use the unused medical supplies. So wala pa ni nagamit nga supplies because bago pa nimo gipalit. So unused medical supplies. Next, unsa atong gihatag, unsa atong gi-credit, amount credited or the account credited. So we credit cash because diba on cash na to siya gipalit. So that is worth 100,000. Effect on your asset. Diba? Effect sa imong asset. There's a increase of asset because you debit unused medical supplies. It's an asset account, therefore you debit, normal balance is debit, so it will increase the total asset. Increase siya og 100,000, but at the same time it will decrease because diba you credit a cash. Cash is an asset account, the normal balance is debit, but we credit the cash, therefore it will decrease your total asset. So the net effect is no effect. But no effect. So zero. The net effect is 0, diba? Or let's say no effect on your total assets. No effect on your total asset. So our discussion is effect on the total assets. Effect on the total assets, effects on the total liabilities, and effect on the owner's equity. Okay. So nabay effect sa liabilities on this transaction? No effect because there's no liability account on the debit and credit. At the same time, there's no owner's equity account. So therefore, asset lang yung na-change, pero still, the total amount of your asset does not change. No effect on the total amount of the asset. Therefore, what type of transaction? So this is an exchange of asset transaction. Diba? Asset, increase, decrease in asset. Okay, so that is exchange in asset. Okay, September 5, the doctor withdrew for his personal use 15,000. Okay, kita ang medical clinic, si Dr. Alegre nagkuha siya og 15,000 for his personal use. Nag-withdraw siya. Therefore, unsa atong i-credit? Syempre, di ba? Nag-withdraw si Dr. Alegre, so we credit cash, di ba? Because gihatagan na tog cash si Dr. Alegre. So, cash 15,000. Unsa atong i-debit? So we debit the withdrawal account, di ba? Kani J Alegre withdrawals. So we debit withdrawals. Bali nakawan ang capital or owner's equity ni Dr. Alegre by withdrawing 15,000. Okay. What is the effect? Diba? J Alegre withdrawal is an owner's equity account and cash is an asset account. What is the effect on your total asset amount or balance? So it will decrease by 15,000. Why? Again, because you credited an asset account and the normal balance of an asset account is debit. So when you credit the asset account, it will decrease its total balance. So decrease of 15,000 na by effect sa mong liabilities. No effect because there is no liability account involved in the transaction because this is an equity and asset account. How about equity or owner's equity? What is the effect of the withdrawals? So withdrawals as a normal balance of debit. but owner's equity has a normal balance of credit. Therefore, it will deduct or it will be deducted on the balance of your owner's equity, or the total owner's equity will decrease by 50,000. So the effect is decrease 15,000. So your guide also, you can use the accounting equation as your reference, diba, in answering this type of questions, because diba, you already have decrease in asset, so no effect on liability. So the effect on owner's equity is also decreased to make the equation balance. Okay, so what type of transaction? So decrease in asset, decrease in liability. So this is use of asset transaction, type of transaction. Next, medical fees, income earned for the week, cash for 50,000 and account for 60,000. Okay, so nag-service, di ba, sa medical clinic. So nanay services na render sa mga clients and customers. So karon 50,000 ato nagbayad cash, tapos ang 60,000 nakautang siya. Diba? So gipautang nato atong mga customer. Okay, sige customer 1 month to pay or pila ka months to pay ang sabot agreement. So therefore, unsa atong nadawat sa transaction? We receive cash. That's 50,000. At the same time natay receivable, natay dawatunon, pilay dawatunon nato. That is 60,000. Question, unsa atong credit? Diba ang service nga atong gi-render. So diba na cash on hand ni sa guys, i-cash na lang ako para di sa lenti. So that's cash. Okay. So we have cash, we have accounts receivable or AR. The same time, di ba, nag-render tag service, naka-earn ta, therefore that's from the medical fee. So that's an income account. Okay, so that is medical fees. Pila total amount sa mo na-render nga service. So that is 110,000, di ba? Although 60,000 di pa utang lang nimo, cash basis ang 50,000. So that is medical fees income worth 100,000. Question, what is the total effects on your asset? Increase, decrease. So it will increase. Why? Because you debited an asset or two asset accounts. You have cash and accounts receivable. They are asset accounts you debited. The normal balance is debit. Therefore, it will increase your total asset balance by 110,000. How about liabilities? Okay, is there any liability account involved in the transaction? Okay, no, di ba? Walang liability account, therefore no effect. How about equity? Di ba? Under equity, you have investment, withdrawal, income, and expenses. Meron bang income account? Yes, we have credited an income account. Normal balance of income is credit. So every time you credit, it will increase the balance. But at the same time, it will also increase the balance of your owner's equity because the normal balance of owner's equity is credit. So it will also increase your owner's equity by 110,000. Question, what type of transaction? Increase in asset, increase in owner's equity. That is a source of asset type of transaction. Next, Dr. Alegre made an additional cash investment. So si Dr. Alegre nagdugang na po siya 350,000 sa atong clinic. 'Di ba? Medical clinic. So therefore, pag additional investment cash ni Dr. Alegre, unsa tong nadawat kang Dr. Alegre, we receive cash. How much? 350,000. Unsa atong gihatag, di ba? So by giving additional cash investment, mo increase pud ang capital account ni Dr. Alegre. So that is J Alegre Capital. By what amount? So the additional amount of 350,000. Question, what is the effect on your asset? It will increase by 350,000 because naka-debit ang asset account cash. So normal balance is debit, it will increase its total balance. How about liability? No effect because there is no liability involved in the transaction. Wala liability account. How about owner's equity? So capital, therefore the normal balance is credit. So every time you credit a capital account, it will increase your owner's equity account because the normal balance of owner's equity account is credit. Therefore, it will increase by 350,000. Question, what type of transaction? It's increase in asset equals increase in owner's equity. Still, it's a source of asset type of transaction. Next, full payment of the note issued to Manila Medical Equipment Supply 50,000. Di ba kagayina nangutang ta og medical equipment? Pila tong utang? Kani, notes payable 550,000. So, on September 11, atong gibayaran. Atong gibayaran, full payment naman nino. So, I think there's a typo there. So, this is 550. Okay. So, that's 550,000. So, gibayaran na to tanan utang, full payment of the note issued to Medical Equipment Supply. So, we know that atong gihatag is cash, di ba? Nagbayad tag cash. Gibayaran na to ang utang worth 550,000. Unsa atong i-debit? So, gibawi na to ang utang. So, we debit notes payable. Diba? Para ma-erase na atong utang. That is 550,000. Question, what is the effect on your asset? Total asset amount, balance. It will decrease by 550,000 because again, you credit an asset account, so it will decrease the total balance of the asset because dili niya normal balance. How about liability account? Na by liability involved? Yes. Notes payable. What is the effect to your liability account? It will decrease also because normal balance of liability is credit, but we debited a notes payable account or a liability account. Therefore, it will decrease your liability balance by 550,000. How about owner's equity? Diba? There's no equity account involved. There's no capital, withdrawal, income, and expense account. Therefore, no effect. What type of transaction? There's a decrease in liability equals decrease in asset. So that is use of asset transaction. Okay, next. September 14, medical fees income earned for the week. So, nag-render na po tag service. We received 30,000 cash from the services rendered. At the same time, nagpautang tag 10,000. Diba? So, from the services we rendered, we received cash worth 30,000. And, nagpautang ta accounts receivable. We have receivable from the customer, 10,000. Therefore, what is our credit since we render a service? So, from medical, that is medical fees, income. So, the total amount of the income we rendered is 40,000. Nakautang lang ang 10,000. So, what is the effect on your asset? Increase, decrease. So, it will increase because we debited two asset accounts. So, that is increase in asset. How much is the total increase? That is 40,000. Sorry. That is 40,000. How about liabilities? So, there's no liability account involved in the transaction, therefore no effect. How about owner's equity? So, it's an income account. Diba? Normal balance of income account is credit. Therefore, it will increase your owner's equity account because the normal balance of your owner's equity account is credit. So, therefore, it will increase by 40,000. Question, what type of transaction? Increase in asset equals increase in owner's equity. That is source of asset transaction. Okay, we're now on the fourth to the last transaction. So, collected in full the patient's account of September 7, 60,000. Okay, di ba on September 7, nag-render tag service, naka-cash ang 50,000, nagpautang tag 60,000. So, on this date, September 15, ato nang nakolekta. Diba? Ang 60,000 nga atong gipautang. Therefore, in the transaction, unsa atong na-receive, unsa atong i-debit, cash, nakakolekta worth 60,000. Unsa atong i-credit? So, atong i-credit ang utang ni customer. So, that is the accounts receivable worth 60,000. So, collection of the on account or the receivable. So, what is the effect on your asset? So, we debit 60,000. This is an asset account. it will increase by 60,000, but at the same time, we credited an asset account nga AR, accounts receivable. So, it will also decrease. Diba? Decrease by same amount, 60,000. So, the net effect is no effect or zero. Diba? Effect on your asset. How about liabilities? No effect because there's no liability account involved. At the same time, owner's equity, no effect. So, what type of transaction, di ba? Increase in asset, at the same time, decrease in asset, that is exchange of asset. Nag-exchange lang asset, so increase, decrease between assets. Next, September 18, both medical supplies on account from Amesco. So, we purchase medical supplies on account, pasabot, giutang. So, giutang nato siya. So, unsa itong nadawat ani nga transaction? So, we receive unused medical supplies. What amount? That is 30,000. How about the credit? Diba, nangutang. So, utang ta. So, utang, unsa man nga account itong gamiton. So, we use accounts payable because wala man nag-ingon nga nag-issue ta og note. Diba? So, we use accounts payable or utang. Pili amount, so it's the same, 30,000 na utang. Effect on asset. Since we debited an asset account, so it will increase your asset account by 30,000. At the same time, And the effect on liabilities, na by liability account, yes, there is a liability account. So you have credited an accounts payable or liability account. So the effect on your total liability is to increase by 30,000. Because we credited, normal balance is credit, so it will increase your total liabilities. How about owner's equity? No effect because no equity account involved. So type of transaction, increase in asset, increase in liability. It's a source of asset type of transaction. Next, second to the last. Medical fees income for 2 weeks cash for 40,000 and on account for 70,000. So again, we rendered our services and 40,000 nakadawat tag cash and nagpautang na po sa customer worth 70,000. Therefore, from the transaction upon rendering the services, we receive what? Cash? 40,000. At the same time, accounts receivable kay nagpautang ta o 70,000. Therefore, on the credit, since we render the service, so that's medical fees income. Total, that is 110,000. Effect on your assets, it will increase because you debit cash, at the same time you debit AR, both asset accounts. So normal balance is debit, so it will increase your total asset account by 110,000. How about liabilities? Okay, no effect because there is no liability account involved in the transaction. How about owner's equity? So, since we credited an income account, the normal balance of income account is credit, so it will increase your total income account. At the same time, it will increase the owner's equity balance because the normal balance of owner's equity is credit. So, that's increase 110,000. What type of transaction? Increase in asset, increase in owner's equity, so it's still a source of asset type of transaction. Okay, last. On September 30, paid taxes and licenses, salaries of attendants, utilities expense. So, dire September 30, katapusan, nagbayad ta sa atong mga expenses. Therefore, sure ta atong credit cash because nagbayad ta. Pilay total sa atong gibayaran. That's 20, 45 plus 40, that's 85, that is 105,000. Question, sa itong i-debit, di ba? Siyempre, ang gasto, di ba? Nagbayad tag licenses, bayad tag salaries, nagbayad tag expense. These are all expenses. So, tanawon to sa chart of accounts. So, you have salaries expense, taxes and licenses, you have utilities. So, gamitin natin sila isa-isa. So, we debit sa to, taxes and licenses. Diba? Nakagasto ta. expense. Ano ba ito? Expense. Taxes and licenses lang. But it's an expense account ha. Expense account ni siya. So, that is total 20,000. Next is nagbayad tag salaries expense. Gasto tag salary, pilay amount, that is 45,000. Next, nagasto tag utilities, bayad sa kuryente, sa tubig. It's either ka ng mga internet, kay utilities expense, 40,000. So, natay tulo ka accounts, debited, taxes, licenses, but these are all expense account and we only credited one account. So, normally, if in any ang case, guys, so mag-tawag dito sa compound transaction, compound entry. Okay. So, compound entry siya, gitibo siya nga entry, compounded. So, okay. So, what is the effect on your total assets? Okay, decrease. Why? Because we credited in asset account the cash account by 105,000. So it will decrease the total asset by 105,000. How about liabilities? Okay, no effect because there is no liability accounts involved in the transaction. Owner's equity na ba? Yes, because again, these are all expenses and expenses is one of the component of the owner's equity account. Okay, so what is the effect on the owner's equity account? Since these are expenses account, the normal balance of expense is debit, so it will increase the total expense account, but it will decrease your owner's equity account because the normal balance of owner's equity is credit. So decrease by pilay total ani, that is 105,000. What type of transaction, di ba? Decrease in asset, decrease in owner's equity, that is use of asset transaction. Okay, so this is a comprehensive illustration of what we have discussed earlier. So, this is it, guys. That's it. That's all for the illustration, for the comprehensive illustration. So, I hope nasabtan siya and you learned from this illustration. So that's all for this topic, for the illustration, and thank you for listening.